multimedia marketing meetup. We meet every sort of 6 to 8 weeks. This is our fourth one, and we've got 200 members now, just over 200, and we've had 200 bums on seats so far, so that's pretty good. And basically, it's just building a community of people and marketing folk that work within the tech and SaaS environment to share stories, case studies, funky tech, anything that's worth sharing and is fun to hear about. And yeah, it's if you've got any questions, please keep them till, either put them in the Q&A session or keep them till the end. Abby will keep an eye on what those questions are and if they're for a specific speaker or for everybody, and we'll have a little bit of a panel discussion at the end. So today's topic is fantastic audiences and where to find them, and we've got 3 amazing speakers who've got some really amazing insights to share with us, so I'm very excited about that. We'll start off with our first speaker, so Gary Taylor. So he's Deputy Managing Director at tmwi. His talk is Tiered Targeting for Tech, How to Structure Your Digital Ads for Success. And Gary plays a key role in group level technical guidance in internal analytics, data and technology, while working closely with clients on high level strategic projects, including spearheading the Purina Pet Care portfolio website migrations at UK and EMEA level, and leading the integrated direction of key clients, including Furniture Village and the Royal Mint. Gary's been a guest speaker at some of the search industry's leading conferences across the UK and Europe, and has been a guest lecturer at Birmingham City University. So welcome, Gary. And if Abby, if you want to stop sharing the screen and then we can go to Gary's presentation, that'd be amazing.
Okay, let me share my screen. You'll be able to see this okay? How does that look? Just shut down my...
That's not your presentation mode, but that looks fine otherwise.
Can't see my presentation. Okay, there we go, right, into presentation mode. Thank you for having me today and this afternoon. So as Christine said, I'm Gary Taylor, Deputy MD of tmwi. My talk today is going to be around tiered targeting for tech. It's a bit of a mouthful, but really how to structure your digital ads for success. Now, I will be focusing on tech and more of a kind of B2B slant, but actually a lot of the principles I'm going to talk about today and the processes can be followed through into kind of any sector. And I've got some takeaway tips for people at the end who can actually use these as kind of practical learnings. So without further ado, you're probably thinking, who on earth are tmwi? I like to think of us as the largest agency you've never heard of. We've worked with some great brands over the last kind of 20 years of our operations. We've got 70 staff across the UK, and we've done some really great things, more recently, particularly over 2020. And some big household names that you'll see there. I'm not here to sell tmwi, I'm here to show you some really cool processes and stuff that we do, and hopefully you'll be able to take home some interesting facts and figures. So today I'm going to talk about this kind of dichotomy of technology, and I put a statement here at the bottom, kind of greater access to data brings greater complexity, not clarity. And time and again with brands and companies, I see the words data, data, data. I'm probably going to say that word 50,000 times in this presentation, but I think very few businesses really know what kind of data they have, where to find it, and more importantly, how to activate it against it. And that's going to be a key theme of the next kind of 15 odd minutes of my presentation, is really getting to the crux of how we can activate data. So our goal with tiered targeting is moving from a traditional stroke opaque view, which we see time and again, limited data from CRM profiles. It may be that they've got an email database that the client's done some light profiling on, maybe some traditional media research, and then again, kind of digital data that might be aggregated from Google Analytics or Facebook audiences. And loosely speaking, that's going to put your customers and your target audiences between a certain age group. And obviously the downside with being kind of between age 25 and 45, that's quite a broad age. I sit somewhere in the middle of that, and I can tell you now, I was very different at 25 than I am now, and probably certainly will be when I'm 45. You know, and again, it's kind of more broad and like we said, it's kind of opaque view of an audience. And where we'd like to get to is this kind of enhanced, defined representation of who your target audience is. And that could be down to job title, a particular level in an organization, whether or not they're avid users of you know, particular social media platforms or heavy consumers of certain media types. We could even get into shopping behaviors, particular brand names that they have affinities to, whether they enjoy music and things like that. And I know John's going to be touching on some different platforms around that, you know, in his talk. And then moving into demographic data. And I think this is an important point because I'm going to touch on demographic data more later on. But you know, if I'm selling tech, if I'm, you know, selling an SEO platform, I don't care whether it's a male, a female, or whatever they, you know, identify as. You know, the person, you know, is represented by the data that I hold on them, and if that data is correct and it's rich enough, then, you know, I can sell them a piece of software. And this is where, you know, the devil's in the detail, really. So getting enhanced B2B and B2C overlays from first-party CRM data, digital segmentation will really help us get a detailed view of who your audiences are. So we've got this big opportunity within data partnerships. Huge amount of third-party data providers that you can get your hands on, and some of these, you know, you'll be aware of. Some of them you might not know how to approach or where to get their data from. But just a few instances to kind of throw at you. Transactional data, you know, we can pick up MasterCard purchase data that can show the purchase intent around certain product categories. We can look at qualitative panel data. A couple of names you may know there. TGI's Target Group Index provides kind of panel data with consumer statements and can give you a really kind of rich insight on how people view particular brands or particular industries. YouGov is again panel based and can give you some really nice behavioral traits around audience segments. But then moving into kind of more weird and wonderful things. So, you know, we can get location data from TomTom where we're looking at a much more detailed longitude and latitude rather than radius targeting, or even something called isochrone targeting, which is essentially drive time, which obviously can look very different to just plotting a pin and drawing a circle around it. And then into the kind of traditional social sentiments, you know, just looking at Facebook versus LinkedIn, the audience data that you can get out of those platforms is very, very different. So see, bringing all of that together from these third parties into a kind of coherent audience strategy, you know, is complex. Notwithstanding that, and you know, some of you'll probably say, what about the death of the third party cookie? Excuse my terrible PowerPoint graphic there, but I think the key things to note with the death of the third-party cookie, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but we're already on the home straight of this journey. Privacy has been around a long time and obviously was expedited, you know, by GDPR. We're seeing Apple and their ITP protocols where visibility of third-party cookies and third-party tracking is getting more and more difficult. The big tech firms, you know, the Facebook, LinkedIn, Amazon, you know, they're all starting, or well, they haven't started, they have shut down their kind of targeting to be within their walled gardens, and you can't get that data out of there very easily. And publishers, you know, are looking to own that first party data, and rather than selling kind of third-party cookies on exchanges, they're looking to again close their data sets down and add value to them. And of course, you know, the big G, Google taking their stance in 2020 and what that may look like. So, you know, there is a threat of that in terms of building audiences, but actually for tech and kind of B2B propositions, I actually see that, you know, as kind of an opportunity. Hence why I'm going to insert this overly used new opportunity sign ahead graphic. And that's really in how we approach new customer acquisition within tech. So we're going to look at how we can structure our digital ads for success. And I'm going to look at how we can approach that through the funnel and then provide some kind of real life examples of what that, you know, can look like. So, you know, first of all, building first party data is vital. You know, we want people to buy into our products, and we need to know how to find those in the most cost effective manner. So we have a methodology for doing that. It's a 4-step process. First of all is identifying and finding these kind of new ultra targeted audience segments that are relevant to your business. The next then is, once we've identified those segments, is how we aggregate those audiences across platforms to gain that, you know, all important reach, frequency, and ultimately response to our advertising. Once we've decided on the, you know, the relevant platforms and audiences, Then we can look at creating bespoke formats to those customer journeys. I see it time and again that the same creative is used across multiple platforms, and that's just a recipe for disaster. We should be tailoring that creative to the audience on the platform. Of course, it means more work creatively, but the results will speak for themselves. And then finally, how we activate innovative, dynamic through the line campaigns. The next few slides, I'm really focusing on the ID and find, and a little bit on the aggregate side of things, rather than the whole process. But for us, it really starts, and it's built on data. We have a piece of technology which we've invested in heavily over the last few years, and we call it the data refinery. It's a way that we centralize existing first-party data for our clients. We augment it against various data sources that we've crafted partnerships with, such as Experian, CACI, etc., and other publishers potentially. And what we're looking to do with this data is to create audience clusters. And these are created using kind of attitudinal and behavioral overlays. We get that from things like social analysis. We can get it from the TGI statements that I spoke about earlier, and other open source data sets, just like all those logos that I had on the screen. Then where possible, we can take those clusters. It might be 2 clusters, it might be 5 clusters. It depends on the kind of size of the data set and the actual findings. We try not to make any assumptions on the data. So if it spits out five clusters, then that's what we're interrogating. And then those are enhanced and refined with third-party digital data. And I'm not just talking about cookie-based data. An example of this is a really great motoring website called Regit. Regit is probably now the largest database of car ownership in the UK, and essentially you can go there and tell them what car you've got. You can schedule in MOTs, your insurance documentation. It's basically a portal for handling anything to do with your car. They monetize their website through the data and augmenting and segmenting that first party CRM. And again, it's kind of a future proof against this kind of potential cookieless world that we're moving into. And I think it's really important that the tech and SaaS businesses today, because it is very much about building CRM, understand how they can access that information in the right way and how they can activate against it. So once we've done all that, some clever stuff happens behind the scenes with machine learning, and we spit out a really nice kind of audience profile and audience clusters. Now, as don't look like this, I've just kind of crammed as much onto one slide as I could. But just over on the left-hand side, you'll see this kind of heat map. And this is kind of getting across the point of, with radius targeting, the differences are wild. And a lot of brands and companies fall short of that, of just going onto Facebook, picking an address, and then putting 17 kilometers around it, which is the kind of default in Facebook. And actually, you can see from those hotspots that the audience profiles within that radius are very, very different. The darker the red, the more likely that hotspot is to be a potential audience for our client. And so we can get really granular on a longitude and latitude basis, a postcode basis, or what's called an isochrone targeting basis. To put that into perspective, with some mobile platforms, we can access a ring-fenced environment and target IDs that fall into that ring fence within a 3 meter by 3 meter grid. So, this type of targeting can get very, very accurate. But of course, then we've got all the kind of standard stuff that you would expect to see. So persona data, stuff about general lifestyle, attitudes towards the environment. We might have socio-demographic data split by age and social grade. I mentioned obviously all the MasterCard data and Experian data that we can access as well. It could be then that we're looking at segmenting per device, which is pretty standard, but also then we may be interested in certain keywords or category affinities that your users may have. And then even building them into third-party segments and looking at their core interests. Because even in a tech environment, if I'm after someone, and I'm selling them a social media platform or a bid optimization platform for Google search, they're still people, right? And they still go and browse on Facebook every day, and they still might go on LinkedIn every day, and they might visit the Daily Mail every day. And we're not here to make assumptions. We're here to look at the best performing data sets and do more of it. And then finally moving into kind of sites and specific sites and placements. So where are these people browsing, and where are the best environments for our brands? And essentially then we graph it up, we put into some nice charts, and we then look to how we activate against these customers. And I suppose at this point, it's really interesting that, once we've got that data, we can locate them and obviously effectively target our audience, right? So just as an example, this is a piece of food and hospitality technology. Just give you some of the actual things that we looked at. So within the data management platforms, that's DMP data, so that's us collecting cookie IDs from their website. We could see various behaviors of their users on the site because, people who run these types of businesses, restaurants, shops, etc., they are just normal people, and we need to understand, are there any kind of common traits within those people? Obviously, we had geographical hotspots like I've spoken about on the previous slide, but then we could start looking at ad server level data. We could look at purchase intent signals. We could see whether they were part of wholesale trade, whether they had leased business locations, interested in the hospitality industry, and then into specific interests, like are they foodies, cooking enthusiasts, aspiring chefs, etc. All of this stuff is, for want of a better word, is programmatic data. It's stuff that's automated. It's stuff that we can glean from tracking. But, however, a big part of this is around manual audiences and direct buys. So, there's been opportunities where we've actually plotted physical convenience store locations within those hotspot areas. And that's stuff that, no ad server can detect for you. You've got to go out and get this open source data. You have to find it yourself. And, we've benchmarked things like electricity providers in certain areas. We've looked at restaurants and convenience stores and all sorts of weird wonderful things that we can overlay, and then obviously moving into very specific kind of vertical websites as well, which you may not be able to find on the exchanges, such as the britishcornershop.co.uk and the wholesale forum, where you can't just buy advertising programmatically through them. So then we have to approach them with a direct buy or a data deal of some sort. And of course, then you get platform specific data, which I kind of find really interesting, is when we're kind of looking at stuff retrospectively. You still have to test audiences and find out, what sectors are getting you the highest percentage of clicks, what company sizes, what seniority, and again, starting to build up these kind of rich profiles around your audiences. So I'm going to talk about this kind of tiered approach to this. So once we've got those audiences in place, we need to understand where they kind of fit in the marketing funnel, how we're actually going to activate against them. So these figures are made up 100,000. So let's just say your upper funnel audience is the size of 100,000. This is where we're looking to do broadcast activity. It's front of mind. We're trying to provide reach and frequency within these broader audiences. And I say broader because more often than not with tech and SaaS, you have a niche audience. It's not necessarily a national audience, and unlikely to be in the millions and millions of people. And the core functionality here is to drive response via either direct traffic or brand searches. And that's a really good proxy for success of awareness driving activity, people who wake up in the morning and type in your company name or search for you on Google. And we can measure that as a success on what's a cost per response basis. Once they're in that kind of mid funnel, they're actually searching for you. They're actually understand a bit about your business. That's where we're starting to gather those data-driven intent signals, either via the website data or whether it's via a lead generation form or something like that. And what we're looking to do here is to prospect to some of those specific audiences that we're finding, and also start a kind of initial retargeting or remarketing of non-converters to continue that frequency and re-engage with them. Largely, we measure that on quality of traffic and engagement, and there'll be various success measures there of what you deem quality traffic, and that'll be measured on a cost per click basis or a cost per landing page view. We're interested in getting in-market people who fit your audience to your website at this point, and this gives us a good feedback loop to refine our upper funnel activity. Once we're starting to see that quality traffic come in and they're displaying those purchase intent signals that we would like to see, that's where we move them into the lower funnel, this kind of dynamic, personalized harvesting of those users, those that are displaying the highest purchase intent signals. And that's where the creative is tailored to those, I'm going to say individuals in inverted commas, because we don't really know who they are in all instances. However, if we've captured CRM, then it can get very personalized for them. And they're very much conversion-based KPIs, cost per lead, cost of sale, etc. And the goal really is building that CRM, building that first-party data, and then creating lookalike audiences off the back of them. Obviously, I'd simplified it, but there could be many, many facets within each part of the funnel as well. So, over time, those strategies can get quite complex as you tend to bring in multiple audiences per tier and multiple sets of creative per audience. And so that can get quite complex very, very quickly. So some practical takeaway tips. I wanted to provide just a few kind of points and hints that people could walk away from this session with. Not have to go kind of war and peace, but literally do it on the back of a fag packet on a piece of paper this evening or when they get a free chance. But first of all, undertake a data audit within your business. And we're not saying for GDPR purposes or anything like that. What I want to get down is people to understand where the gaps may be and look at things they've not thought of previously. So, what do you actually have access to across your business in terms of data online and offline? What are you currently collecting versus what could you collect to help you understand your customers better? What third-party data sets would help you understand or find more potential customers? And this is quite an interesting one because you don't know what you don't know. If you didn't know you could access MasterCard data in a certain way or Boots Advantage card data in a certain way, then you're never going to ask that question. So the question to ask is actually, well, what would I love to know about my customers? Once you can map that out, then you can start answering the questions through data providers. So some key data points I think you should know, and I think if you're answering no to any of these, then you've got a bit of work to do. So first of all is the current geographical hotspots that you have for converters in your business, but also the prospective locations as well. And this doesn't just mean which city. Again, companies fall foul of putting in a town or a city and then doing a radius targeting, and there are big differences in conurbations and towns, villages, etc. And a lot of wastage can happen by making that assumption. Attitudinal and behavioral identifiers. Are there any common themes appearing across your customer segments? Contextual nuances. What type of content is your potential customer consuming? Can you find keywords in your search activity? Are people searching for specific keywords within your own website and you're not monitoring those? Are there particular themes of content that are referring traffic to your website from other websites and starting to pull that data together? And could you be doing some of that content yourself? And then into site lists, particular websites, forums, portals, blogs, etc. What's currently driving that traffic to your website, and benchmark that against click-through rates or physical conversions, right? Is it driving just quality traffic or is it driving real leads or real sales? And then finally, the demographic data. I touched on this right at the start. I didn't say, we don't really care about gender itself, but actually what I'm more interested in, particularly for tech companies, is the difference between what I call the foot soldier and the decision maker, the user versus the purchaser. If you came into our business and looked at who the converters were for the vast majority of our software, it would be Sarah in the accounts department who uses our company credit card, right? And if you based your targeting on that, you wouldn't get very far in building a business. The same as when I get approached for software or any types of tech that businesses are trying to sell into our company. I'm not actually the decision maker. I listen to my staff and the recommendations of what they like to use. And I think it's really I think pivotal for tech businesses to understand who's actually using their platforms, as opposed to who are the people purchasing them or actually converting, and profiling those users instead. That may need customer feedback surveys. It's not necessarily as simple as looking at website behavior or just at the CRM data. And then finally, map that out. Once you've answered these questions, map that against your customer journey and purchase funnel. And too often I see this not happening at all. So what are the objectives for each tier of activity? Is it just driving traffic? Is it getting reach within a particular audience? Is it a sale, a hard KPI like a lead? What audiences are you going to test, and how are you going to refine those by tier? And what platforms do you want to activate on as well by tier? It may be that certain websites perform better at the top of the funnel, and as you move people down, it moves more into a social environment that helps them to convert. And that's what we kind of really need to understand by platform. And of course, the KPIs for measuring success, there's no point doing any of this if you can't say which audiences perform better than another. So having a clear framework for what defines success is really, really important. So in summary, and just to recap what we've covered, so we're trying to understand this greater access to data often brings greater complexity. That goes without saying. Trying to get clarity of all of this stuff that's out there that we can use does require some sort of structured and tiered approach to your audience planning. We've explored various third-party data sources and partnerships, and I'm hoping that you can save these slides at some point and go explore some of those yourself and how you can potentially access them. And there's some really interesting stuff there. I get excited about it. Other people may not, and how you can develop those kind of audience segments. We've highlighted the importance of building first-party data, and I can't stress this enough in future-proofing your advertising. If you are not building first-party data now, in 12 months' time, you're going to be in a sticky situation. So I would advocate that until the cows come home. I don't think it's better to say that. We've covered clear outputs from detailed audience analysis, and we've demonstrated how these outputs can be layered across the customer journey and purchase funnel. So really, we're just finishing really on articulating some practical takeaway tips for planning, which I've just walked you through, and hopefully then you can take those and start asking those questions within your organization and beginning to uncover some of the advantages of these third-party data sets and tiered targeting that you can approach. Thank you very much.
That's great, Gary. Thank you very much for that structured and tiered approach. It's definitely food for thought. And so for our next speaker, we've got John McMahon, who is CEO of MCM Net, and his topic is pin, spot, and link in with your customers with digital marketing. So John is CEO at MCM Net, and it's a digital marketing agency that he founded 22 years ago. And as a passionate marketer, he loves experimenting with new platforms and discovering the potential reach and targeting options of all the channels available. And I think he's got quite a few ideas that might surprise you in this talk. So take it away, John.
Thank you, Christine. No pressure there. Gary, I couldn't agree more with you. Data, data, data. This is the year of data. If you ignore data, you're not going anywhere at all. What I want to talk to you all about today is, having taken that data, done the forensic that Gary was talking about just there, is you know who your audience is, you know their profile, where can you go and find them? Now, Gary went through the funnel as well, so I just want to back up this whole funnel approach that Gary was talking about. This isn't about buy one, get one free advertising, sticking it in front of people and hoping they're going to click, put it in the basket and buy. Obviously, they don't do that with services. They don't do that with software. It's all about awareness, first of all, actually getting in front of the right people softly, getting them to the consideration stage of the funnel next, so that then you can go in with your retargeting and more of your sales-based conversion at the end of the funnel. So what I'm going to talk about today is where you can find your audiences that we just talked about, but other than Google, because I think everyone knows Google's there. There are plenty of people you can push in front of, but it's very expensive and it's very, very oversaturated. So let's start with the most fun of the lot, which is Spotify. Spotify is maybe a surprise to a lot of people that it's become now the biggest radio station in the world. It's got 320 million monthly active users worldwide, and 42% of those are over 35. So it's not just the kids on the channel. Only 21% of those have got a premium account though. So what that means is the rest of that 320 million that are on Spotify are actually getting adverts either displayed to them on a desktop, or they're listening to adverts which are put in between podcasts, songs, etc. And Spotify also gives you the same targeting that other channels do as well. So you can target into people based on what they're interested in, what they're listening to, and even, and especially importantly, what sort of podcasts they listen to. So matching that up with the audience we were just talking about there could be a goldmine. It's very much an awareness channel, and it helps you drive consideration through to the further parts of the funnel. It is easy to advertise on Spotify. They released a new studio version late in the year last year. You only need to spend £250 a month as a minimum budget on Spotify, and they'll go away and they'll make a professional voiceover advert for you. So If you're as old as I am, and remember when you used to have to book some radio time, you'd have to go and get your voiceover artists and spend thousands of pounds with them to get it right. Spotify will do this at the moment for you free of charge. You can select the accent, you can select the sort of person you want, you just give them a script and they'll create the adverts for you. And there's all sorts of different targeting options available within there. They've also got video ads that they released towards the middle of last year as well, which are proving to be very effective. You can target as per other channels via age, gender and location, but you can also target into how Spotify builds up its data about the interests of its users. So you can target around things like tech, but also think about, Gary was talking about your buyers, who's the actual person who's making the decision, and think about what their interests might be when they're listening or looking at Spotify. You can advertise through, if you use Spotify, you can see what type of music people are listening to. So whether they're in a chill out mood, whether they're in a gaming mood, whether they're in travel, workout, cooking, etc. So all of those, you can think about what sort of state of mind people might be in when they're listening. And the types of music as well. And you can see on the left there, it's very easy to go in and create your ad. You can target by age, gender, interests, etc. Another one you might not have thought about, and this is really a huge growth channel from last year. A lot of these channels, by the way, grew hugely, as you might expect, during lockdown. There's 442 million active users now on Pinterest. They generally are higher income individuals are likely to use it. And there's only over 2 billion searches on Pinterest, 2 billion searches on Pinterest each month, which is quite incredible considering it was just a sort of, it was a fun pin board originally. It sits right at the top of the funnel again, but it is really cost effective. It's one of those places you should go and experiment with some budget at the moment before everyone actually cottons on to just who's there and how many people are using it. The split is now 60% female, the rest being male. This has changed hugely again last year. It used to be largely a female channel. It was used for all sorts of arts and crafts, etc. And men, for some reason, shied away from it. But there's been a huge increase in male users in 2020. So if that is part of your audience target, again, worth looking at, because these tend to be people across both male and female who are planners. They've got early ideas, they're looking at projects, etc. But this has become much more business projects now than just individuals. So you'll find, if you have a look at the sort of people who are actually advertising and the people who've actually got channels on there, all the large tech companies currently now have channels on Pinterest. According to Pinterest, and this is a direct quote from them, if you spend £2 as a marketer, you'll make £2 rather for every pound that you spend on the platform. You've got targeting options on there, which are, you can either target across the classic, as you might do on Google, which is target for what people are searching for on Pinterest. But you can also target across to the feed. So again, that's looking at the feed that somebody's looking at, what they're interested in, etc. And we find a combination of those together, and then looking at the analysis at the end, the analytics, which are hugely important, then just changing the mix. The CRM list, the data that Gary was talking about earlier on, you can actually upload your CRM lists into some of these platforms. Pinterest is one of those. And then you can match users, so people who have already got an interest in what you're selling. But you can also ask it to produce something called an actor-like audience. So those are people who are very similar to the people that you know have already bought from you. It's fantastically useful to actually, identify an audience you might not have thought of. Again, video, we all know we're all watching more and more video. We're too lazy to read stuff these days. Video on Pinterest is definitely the way to go, again, to stand out from the crowd. Another of the channels, well, I'm sure everyone knows YouTube, but YouTube has changed hugely over the past couple of years. It is the #1 video streaming platform in the world. It's the biggest TV channel out there. It is something we all use regularly, but it's powered by Google, which means they're constantly pouring money into it to ensure that it stays there right at the top. So it's got one of the largest user bases of any of these platforms I'm talking about. The great thing about that Google ownership, though, is its targeting is powered by Google Ads. So Google Ads is still the king of finding the data, getting in front of the right people, etc. But because it's powered by Google Ads, all that data is now taken into YouTube, but YouTube is a much more accessible channel for most of us to be able to go and advertise on. As per the other channels, you can target by age, gender, keyword, and something called custom affinity audiences, which is just another way for saying, look at what their interests are, look at what people who buy from you might be interested in, and advertise around videos they might be watching along those lines. It's just as precise as any other sort of targeting option, search and display as well. And you can, if you want to, you can buy the whole of the homepage of YouTube if you've got a large budget, and that will guarantee you over 80 million impressions. So if anyone's got deep pockets, highly recommend it. Why advertise there? 8.6 billion monthly visits worldwide, 344 million are in the UK. So this isn't just something that's around the world, and there aren't a lot here. 344 million, 73% adults. Again, if people think that a lot of social is just for kids and it's not the right audience, etc., the majority of people who are on YouTube now are using it. They're adults. 36 to 45 is probably the largest percentage of that. And again, you can use exactly the same targeting. You can upload your data as well. So put your data in there again, target to the right people. And custom intent, what people are thinking about doing, by what they've visited, what sort of cookies have been stored, but also around life events as well. So if they're mentioning on channels that it's their birthday or marriage or something like that, you can target around those sort of events. Cost per view, actually showing somebody, is inexpensive still. And again, this is changing as more people are realizing they don't have to do amazing videos just to get on YouTube and place an advert on there. So cost per view, somewhere between 0.01p, 0.05p. So again, something to experiment with. Actually getting clicks, which is something we don't really get on YouTube anyway, is a lot more expensive, £2 to £8. But click-through rate's low. People you don't tend to watch a video and then say, oh, that's an interesting advert, click and off I go. It's more about awareness. So it doesn't generally cost you a huge amount because you don't get the clicks. It's a great remarketing tool though, because once people have shown an interest in adverts that you've got on there, again, you can put that data to use later for remarketing further down the funnel. Facebook ads, another place that maybe people have started, especially as businesses, to think, well, nobody goes there anymore. It is still the largest social media platform out there, 2.6 billion monthly active users. 35% of the world, that's my stat, I googled that because I wasn't sure about the numbers, but 35% of the world still use Facebook. And 1.73 billion of those are logging in every single day. So it's still regularly used. Even here in the UK, an average of 23 minutes a day on the platform. I believe it's more than that from last year. And potentially that's a habit that's going to be more ingrained in people as well. All age ranges across the platform. We all know that, a few years ago, all the kids left Facebook because the grown-ups, the parents, went on to Facebook, so that wasn't cool anymore. But actually people have now, the excitement of the channels has changed. People are using each of the channels for different reasons. Facebook for one, Instagram for another, YouTube for another. So again, as Gary said, you need to take your adverts across the different channels. You can't just have one and stick it everywhere. You need to think about who your market is, but it is a good mix of ages. Great for B2B and B2C. Again, don't think it's just a consumer channel. On the left-hand side there, you can see MailChimp, Zoom, Slack, all of them place adverts across Facebook. And again, very, very easy to do. Average cost per 1,000 impressions in the UK, somewhere between £2 and £3. Linked into that as well is Instagram ads. Instagram, again, huge growth in users, slightly smaller than Facebook, but still got 1 billion monthly users. 500 million of those log in every single day. So again, a regular use platform. And it's not just holiday snaps anymore. 200 million people visit a business profile every day. So it isn't just celebrities, it isn't just holiday snaps. Again, it's something to be taken seriously and to have a look at. On the left-hand side, there's an example there. It's not a repeated image that we dropped in by mistake. That's a carousel, a slider advert. So again, you're just paying for one bit of real estate, if you like, on there, but these are incredibly useful. If you give it a go, you can build these within the platform. Very, very easy to do. The great thing as well is Facebook and Instagram run through exactly the same ads manager platform. So you can go and you can set up your ads, because they can be similar for these two channels. You've got similar sorts of audience, do all your filtering, and then you can look and you can play with how people are responding to the ads across the two channels. Again, filter by age, gender and location. Interest based again, because these channels are all about interest. They're more about people's hobbies, likes, etc. So you can really filter down to exactly the sort of people you want to look at. Again, lookalike audiences, exactly the same as well, and lookalikes between the two channels as well. So uploading CRM data that you've got, taking some of that data we spoke about earlier on and putting it in here, will drill down to exactly the right sort of people you want. And then you follow up with the remarketing again. Instagram for engagement is the king of all the channels. Whether it's because of the photos, whether it's because that's easier, whether it's because the type of people that are on there, people tend to spend an awful lot more time engaging with content on Instagram. You can story placements are available on Facebook, but Instagram is really the place. We know everyone has copied the whole story format. Even LinkedIn have tried it. I don't know if anybody has ever tried a story on LinkedIn or whether it'll ever take off, but certainly these channels, Instagram in particular, stories are a great place to be. They're also doing shopping functionality within there as well, so you can buy direct. So you can place a link directly within your advert, and people can actually buy directly in Instagram as well, which is definitely worthwhile looking at. I've saved the biggest to last. I think everybody knows in the business world, and we're talking about tech, we're talking about an area that everyone knows, somebody who's on LinkedIn, and the numbers on LinkedIn are fantastic, and the targeting is amazing as well. Top 5 industry users by user numbers. So the IT sector. Now, I know that's not necessarily who you're selling to, but the IT sector is the biggest sector across LinkedIn, 19.2 million users. But the targeting, I think as Gary mentioned earlier on about channels like this, is incredible. The data that they've picked up and how they can target down certainly to a business user is incredible. The split now, again, has gone nearly 50-50. 57% male, I reckon, 43% female, so not much different there. A 55% increase in conversions, sorry about that, last year. 60% increase in content creation. Now, we know we were all strapped to our desks. We were just talking at the start of this that we've all been working 23-hour days last year. We should have had all this time for twiddling our thumbs and learning a new hobby, but we've all been sitting there, and most of us have just been sitting on LinkedIn by the look of it. 437% increase in live streams. I think most of that was actually nascent, but there is an awful lot of content going out there, awful lot of challenges out there on the channel, but we know we're all watching more video, we're all enjoying it, we're all absorbing an awful lot more. 15 times more content impressions apparently, according to LinkedIn, and a huge growth in their ad reach. Ad reach grew by 25 million people, and that's a platform we thought was pretty saturated already. 4 out of 5 people there drive the business decisions. Again, going back to what Gary was talking about earlier on, that's quite an important stat. I mean, they are people on there who are decision makers or are feeding back to the decision maker within a company. Laser targeting, like the rest of these channels, but I think anyone that's actually played with the LinkedIn ads knows you can really drill down. In fact, you can even do this in your own personal search when you go into LinkedIn to try and look for people, job title, company, seniority. It's expensive if you're looking at it as a cost per click basis. LinkedIn know they've got some fantastic data there, and they're very happy to charge for it. But if you use this more as a funnel, getting information in front of people, it doesn't have to be expensive. They lead you through it. They tell you, they say, you know, what sort of conversion do you want? What's your objective here? And they even list them out. You can see their awareness, consideration, or conversions. You can also go through InMail as well. So I think you probably know that, but you can actually target people directly as a block through InMail ads to the people that you've decided are going to be interesting to target. Some tips here for LinkedIn. Leverage LinkedIn's unique job title and function targeting. You really can target right into exactly the person you want to speak to. Again, upload your data, use your data, and then use it in conjunction with LinkedIn as well. So you can then filter down to exactly who you want to get in front of. Lead generation forms, these are brilliant within LinkedIn, and a great way to gather data from people as well. And demographic options, they're post campaigns, so you can actually then see what job titles responded, do your analysis on the data. Here's an example of some of the targeting that you can do and how granular you can actually get down. It's almost like placing an advert on Indeed for a job advert or something like that now. It's so simple to go through and do it and test the water and see how much it would cost you as well. All of the targeting options here, and it even tells you how much they reckon you'll spend per day, and you can cap it too. So no excuse not to give it a go. You should use the lead gen forms within LinkedIn. On other platforms and websites, etc., we'd say to really, customize your forms. But the lead gen forms that LinkedIn provides you with, they remove what we call the friction. They're really easy, especially on mobile, for people just to quickly add in their data. Some of the fields are pre-populated as well, which actually means you can ask for slightly more information. And we found people give an awful lot more information through these lead gen forms on LinkedIn. The other thing about the lead gen forms is when you actually submit them, you can then put a message up as well. So you've got potentially double conversions for what you're paying for, because then you can say, here's a link to our website, or would you like to come and try this free offer, etc. I'm sure you've seen it. A quick case study. This is a software platform. It's a company called Reg. Compliance for the insurance industry. This is a customer we've worked with recently who came to us and basically said, I can't see how you can possibly get us in front of our really super laser targeted market. And we said, well, let's try LinkedIn. So basically the way we worked on this is we actually went out first of all, and we went via Facebook and Twitter, because it's cheaper there. We knew it was a cheaper way to get warmed up in front of the audience. You can get a little pixel, a little bit of a tracking pixel that you can then feed that data through into LinkedIn to see who's interested in those adverts. You take that, you then use your hyper targeting messages that I just talked about there with the data to refine it even further. And then you get those warm users, the ones that you know that you're going to be interested in, to leave their details with some sort of free PDF report. And we find these work an awful lot better than any direct advertising or come to our website or just give us your details, etc. If you can give something, we all know, we've seen the reports on there, we think, yeah, I'll just put my email address. You try your fake email address, it won't let you download it. We've all been there. This sort of data, create white papers, etc. people are really interested in. You can then follow up on those leads with an email and your standard, telesales team, etc. That was £47 cost per lead, but we had a 12% conversion rate. Now, I won't tell you what each lead actually meant to them and how that converted, but it was a hugely successful. It's the best advertising platform they have ever used in terms of how much it costs them to acquire new customers across it. So it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Also, you can do it organically. So we've talked a lot, or I've talked a lot about paying for it across all the different channels. It's very hard, as we know, on Facebook or Instagram to actually get followers because there's so much of interest out there that to get a really, really decent audience built up for free is difficult. That's not the case on LinkedIn. Unless you're actually paying on LinkedIn, generally company channels don't do very well. It's all about people and personalities, etc. I'm just looking at the slides that we've taken on the left hand side there from my channel, and realized that if you buy from us, it's going to be very strange because the faces we seem to be pulling in the freeze of the video, etc. All you can see is my bald head repeated. Basically optimizing your profile. Again, all of the panelists here today are very good at this. We've probably all been on a very similar course telling us exactly how to do it. But I'm going to mention James Potter's name. In fact, maybe we should put that in the link later on. Absolutely fantastic course that he runs. But there's a lot of science behind optimizing your profile, getting your credentials right, and getting endorsements from people you know, etc. It's important to try and post daily, but things that are actually interesting to people. Learn a bit about the algorithms, mixing up text, image, and video together. Commenting on people who might buy from you, commenting on potential posts, etc. So you get known a little bit more. That side of it, peripheral noise, etc., is something we should all be doing as individuals, because the audience there is still huge, and there still is a gap on LinkedIn to actually play with the algorithm and get in front of the right people. And last thing to say on LinkedIn, and maybe across Facebook and a few of the other channels, is 2021 is the year of community marketing. That's a case of building a community, building that audience that you can go in and get a discussion going with like-minded people. So that's definitely worth considering on this and other channels as well. And that's it, I think. Back to you, Christine.
That was amazing, John. Thanks very much. Lots of food for thought there. That's really very interesting. And I'm sure people haven't sort of thought of all those platforms in that way. So thanks very much for that. And now we have Mr. Nathan Lomax, who's going to be talking to us about why driving high quality traffic is just vanity unless your site is geared for conversion. So Nathan is co-founder and director of Quickfire Digital, and he's leading innovation in the area of digital transformation. Quickfire works with businesses to improve efficiency, profitability, and scalability through the use of tech. He's won numerous awards and most recently picked up the Rising Star Award in the European Agency Awards 2020. So congratulations and welcome, Nathan.
Christine, massive thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you to both Gary and John for some superb presentations. I think before I start, I want us to imagine a triangle. And that triangle starts with Gary's presentation around data. It then looks at traffic and what John's had to say, and then it looks at conversion. And actually what we realize is that none of these are possible without the other two elements. So it's no good having great data and then driving great traffic, but actually not focusing on conversion, just like it's pointless focusing on conversion or on traffic as a standalone. It's really important that the three work in unison. And so hopefully Gary's told us all about data, how we can access it and the importance of it. John's done a great job in telling us, okay, how we can now drive that traffic to the platform. And now it's my job to tell you about the last 5 yards, the bit that hopefully makes a difference and pulls all this together, which is a conversion once we've got them to the site. And it's important, we haven't just got anyone to the site, but using the data techniques we've been shown, using the traffic techniques to be shown, we've got the relevant people and the right audience ready to purchase our product or service. And so I always say to people that if you want to be in the top 1% of tech and SaaS organizations out there, you've got to be prepared to do what the other 99% of people are not prepared to do. And actually a large part of that is understanding that triangle and working on all 3 points of the triangle, not putting all your eggs into one basket. And so let's begin. The first thing I'd like to understand is, do we have an existing website conversion strategy? Now, what do I mean by that? It's very simple and it revolves around 3 numbers. CPA, which stands for cost per acquisition, CPC, which stands for cost per click, and then CR, which stands for conversion rate. Now, once we understand all those numbers, this exercise starts to become interesting. And so as we've heard, it all starts with the customer, and I would absolutely agree with what both Gary and John have said. We need to understand what our customers look like, where they come from, how they buy, and how they're going to behave online. We then start to drive the traffic. Once we've got the audience profiled, we know who's relevant, we start to drive the traffic to the site. Who are they? What do they look like? Where do they spend their time? We work that out, and then we make sure we get the right product in front of them. However, now we focus on the website, the last 5 yards. So first of all, I want to understand how you're educating your audience. And hopefully during this presentation, there'll just be one little nugget that stands out, which you can go and implement after this session. Think about how you're educating your audience. Are you using platforms like LinkedIn, maybe LinkedIn Live, to run workshops to show that you're a thought leader? But actually, when they get to the website, how are we reinforcing that? Are we using blogs? Are we using embedded videos? What are we doing to take our users on a journey and then nurture them along that journey if they're not quite ready to purchase? So think about how you're educating your audience. Is it an infographic? Is it videos? Is it white papers? Is it guides? They're all useful tools in nurturing people along that funnel. Once we've finished educating the audience, think about consistency across the platform. If you've found the data and then you're doing some advertising and John's helped you to maybe run a Spotify campaign or possibly Pinterest or Instagram, any one of those channels, it's no good if when they get to the website, it doesn't back it up. You've heard that old saying in terms of walking the walk and not talking the talk. And this is what I'm really getting at here. Let's not talk the talk and run some beautiful campaigns, but then not back it up when they get to the website. It's got to be consistent, and you've got to do it across the funnel from the very start right to the very end. I always talk about remarketing, and actually so many businesses miss the opportunity of remarketing. We send them to the website, we pay for the traffic, and then we think our job is done. And what I would do is just call you out on that and say, actually, your job has barely started. Great, we've got people there, but if they bounce, there's still a massive opportunity to capture those people, to get them into a secondary funnel and essentially try and get them back to the site to get them to convert. Now with SaaS and tech, it might be filling in a lead gen form, it might be downloading a white paper, it might be requesting a callback, booking an appointment. There's so many different goals, and I suggest you kind of categorize those goals into primary, secondary, tertiary goals. But actually it's so important that we don't drive people to the site and then allow them to bounce without following them and dropping that remarketing pixel to look after them for the next 540 days. So if you do anything after today from my presentation, please make sure your remarketing strategy is set up and don't miss this trick. The next is around social proof. It's all well and good taking them to the site. Perhaps we've ran a great ad campaign and they've loved the content so far, but actually we work in a herd mentality. And what I mean by that is people will always think about this when you're buying products, when you're buying services, when you're buying holidays, whatever it is, you will typically look at testimonials, case studies and reviews to see actually, am I prepared to buy that? Who else has had a similar experience? And sometimes you'll look at the worst reviews and the best reviews, etc. So think about on your site, how are you showcasing real social proof to say someone's bought this product or service? Again, in the tech SaaS space, perhaps they've subscribed to something, perhaps they've been a member for a serious period of time. Just think about how we can create and share that social proof that make people believe the journey that they're on and actually reinforce and give them that comfort that they're not alone in this process. Now, I always say that no traffic or any activity is any good unless we've got the analytics and reporting to back it up. There is no point in spraying and praying anymore, and actually there's no excuses for that anymore. With the access to the data that we've got at our fingertips, as Gary's demonstrated, as I'm sure you'll all know with analytics, Hotjar, all those good tools, there is no reason why we need to do guesswork anymore. We can be super precise and we can make sure we're doing the right things for the right audience at the right time. Now, again, I talk about, okay, it's great, they've bounced or they haven't bounced and they've converted, but actually there's a whole nother funnel to think about, which is how we make them one-time purchasers of a product or service and take them into retention planning. So an after-sales process. Again, sometimes, let's say it's in the SaaS space and they're looking to start with a tool and they subscribe to this tool, there might be an onboarding process, and that's arguably just as important. So don't just focus on the traffic or the data or the website, but also think about the first touch point someone's going to have with your brand after they've purchased. We always talk about this kind of surprise and delight mentality. How do we really surprise and delight time and time again, so every time they touch our brand, they're filled with joy? So think about how you're retaining your customers. It's no good just pumping traffic into the bucket and then realizing the bucket's got holes in it. Make sure the bucket is solid, make sure it's got a solid foundation, and then start pouring the traffic in, and that's where you'll start. Your chosen goal or action. Now, as I say, there might be several chosen goals or actions. Crow is so popular because it's sometimes so easy. And what I mean by that is this. It's one of the only ways to increase sales without just pouring more budget at something. There is no good just saying, okay, how do we get X amount more customers? I tell you what, I'll just throw another 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 into the ad spend. Actually, let's get the bucket fixed before we pour more water in. Then start thinking about, okay, why else is Crow so important? Actually, a lot of the stuff is not rocket science. There's some really simple low-hanging fruit that you can pick up and tick off, which will have a significant effect on conversion rate. The nice thing as well is it doesn't take ages to start. You can start from tomorrow with some really basic things. And so if you want to get on board with conversion rate optimization, you need to, like these guys, have an obsession over marginal gains. And so for those of you that are into your sports as I am, you might remember the England Rugby World Cup winning team, or the rowing team, or the cycling team. And you'll see this more and more with people like Sir Dave Brailsford and his mentality, where he's absolutely obsessing about little 1% gains. And this should appeal to all of your digital marketing, whether it be looking at the data, driving the traffic, or the website itself. If you can just keep improving things ever so slightly better quality of data, slightly better ad copy, slightly better ad imagery, slightly better videography, slightly better channel choice, slightly better website, slightly better call to action, all these little 1% compound and you begin to see marginal gains. Now, today I just wanted to share with you 9 very practical and simple tips to help improve your conversion rate from today. The first would be about reducing friction. Now, I don't know why this is. Maybe it's a British culture thing. I really don't know. But we seem to want to know absolutely everything about the customer right at the start. So we spend a fantastic job getting the data. We do a brilliant job driving them to the site through some great quality traffic. And then suddenly we ask them where they're born, how old they are, what's their mother's maiden name, inside leg measurement, shoe size, it goes on. And actually a lot of that stuff can be captured later down the funnel. We just want to get them on board, get the data into the CRM, give us an opportunity to get on the phone, and then essentially close that person. So try and avoid too many variations and options. Think about how, if it's more of an e-commerce experience, you can focus on a reordering experience. But even in SaaS and tech as well, how can we make sure it's really easy to repeat what we've just done, such as auto form fills and things like that, and then really understand your user behavior and what's expected. And what I mean by that is sometimes you will see large red call to actions and very rarely do we use green. Yet if you think about a traffic light, you would see that actually red means stop and green means go. And actually that's built into our psychology. So why not tap into that to try and make our journey a little bit easier for people? Now, one of the other things I always talk about is live chat. And if you're not using live chat, I suggest you really start looking at it. There's different options out there and you can use paid for options such as Yondle, which is a provider we would recommend, or there's some free options, whether it be through Facebook Messenger, through ManyChat, WeChat, the list goes on. There are so many chat providers. Talk.to, TAWK.to is another one, which is free. Have a look. And it's really important that we embrace the journey that a customer goes on when they're not quite ready to pick up the phone, but they're not quite ready to fill in a contact form, or maybe a contact form isn't enough, a phone call's too much. What is that middle ground? To me, that's live chat. And I think it's really important we look at live chat as a way to bridge that gap. After live chat, you would start to think of sticky menus. There is nothing more frustrating than when you land on a site, you see the menu options, perhaps it's got a telephone number, etc. Really poor use of red buttons. The only thing I would forgive them, I guess, is that the brand is red, but even that I don't really agree with. As you scroll down, you then lose the menu. Okay, now the customer might not be ready to purchase or inquire or request a callback or complete your goal at the top of the page. However, they may be as they scroll down. That could be at any point in that journey. So having a sticky menu just overcomes that obstacle and kind of handholds them through that process. And that's what I think as marketeers we're all typically quite poor at, is actually we expect the user to do all the hard work. And what I'd encourage you all to do is simplify the journey, handhold them through the process, and take out any hard work or barriers. You do all the hard work, it should be nice and easy for them. The next thing I'll consider is on exit pop-up. So it might be that actually they've not purchased the kind of free guide or the tutorial or the webinar series or whatever it's going to be. And actually there's another opportunity, the final roll of the dice, that actually on exit, we can just say, wait, before you go, do you want to attend this event? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Do you want to download this guide? Perhaps we can have a specialist call you. Whatever it may be, there's nothing more frustrating than getting pop-up after pop-up after pop-up when you've shown no intent. So you've just landed and you're like, oh, have 15% off, do this, do this. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But actually on exit, it's just that final friendly little reminder to say, wait, before you go, have you thought about this? We talked a little bit about this earlier, but social proof is so important, particularly in the tech and SaaS space. Can you show accreditations? Can you show logos of clients you've worked with? Again, thinking about that herd mentality, someone sees you've worked with this brand, that brand, that brand. All of a sudden, well, if they're good enough for that brand, they're going to be good enough for me. So think about how you can show case studies, show testimonials, show logos to actually build that social proof. Clear and concise call to actions is another really important one. There are too many people that I've seen on the web when doing these kind of presentations before that are looking to say, click here to download this free guide, and as a result, you will get XXXXX. No, just keep it really simple. Try for free, start today, buy now, inquire today, request a callback, whatever it is. They're short, sharp, we get them in, we listen to them, we then hopefully make the sale. Offering a guarantee is an interesting one. I understand not every business can do this, but actually giving that customer peace of mind that you absolutely stand by your product or service and you're prepared to offer a guarantee if it isn't to a satisfactory level. So in the tech and SaaS space, think it might be a free trial, it might be a 30-day money-back guarantee, whatever it may be, just something that's going to, again, reduce that barrier of friction, help them overcome the hurdle, help them justify it to the marketing department or whoever it is they've got to justify it to. It's such an important tool and one that's often underutilized. Again, we mentioned this earlier, but how can you surprise and delight your audience at every step? Now, I don't mean always reducing value. So again, you go onto a platform and all of a sudden it's, oh, it was $40, it's now $10 today if you sign up. I don't necessarily mean that in terms of eroding your margin, but I do mean how you can add little extras in. So add value as opposed to reduce price. So think about how you can maybe add in a free consultation call or a free guide or a free access to a certain webinar or reduced access to something else. Rather than discounting core product, think about how you can build value and add kind of average order value, if you like. The final one for me is about A/B split testing. We've talked all through today's presentation around data. It's so important that while you may have a hunch, and while I may have a hunch, and while your marketing team may have a hunch, actually the only data that matters is that of the customer. So create variant A, create variant B, let the customer decide which one they prefer, and then it doesn't stop there. Essentially, if B wins, that's great. You knock A on the head, you spin up C with the learnings from B and the learnings of why A failed. And then B and C run together. You take the learnings from B and C. Okay, this time C won. You knock B on the head and you spin up D. And it constantly iterates over time so that you make those marginal gains. And I can promise you, those marginal gains will compound to quite impressive results. Now, I hope that's been helpful. And I look forward to, with John and Gary, answering any of your questions. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thanks, Nathan. Some great tips there. I was taking notes myself. So that's fantastic. Thanks all for amazing talks and really good insights and input. Thank you. We have got a couple of questions, I think, that came up on the chat. Abby, I don't know if you're ready to shoot some of those across at all.
Yeah, sure. I think Gary's answered them in the chat, but I guess, John, somebody's wondering what would be the benefit of using Spotify when you've got LinkedIn and you're in a B2B market?
The answer to that's partly what Nathan was talking about there with your A/B testing. They're completely different channels, certainly as cost goes. So LinkedIn incredibly expensive, but Spotify at the moment very cheap in comparison. And if you think about it, I mean, I don't know who the audience is today, but out of us here, I certainly listen to Spotify, and I'm quite likely to be a buyer of tech. So I think you need to try everywhere where the audience could be, and you could find, as we found for financial service clients, in fact, recently, a company that I won't mention on here, but you wouldn't have expected their audience to necessarily not be paying for a Spotify membership. They've been amazed by the results from it and the price of the campaign. So you have to test everything and see if it works for you.
I guess that kind of answers your second question as well, of how do you select which platform to spend your marketing budget on? So is it just a try and see how you go kind of strategy?
Hopefully a bit more science behind it than that, but yes, I mean, essentially you need to look at all the channels and see where your audience is. Some of them you will discount because your type of business, you're not going to find your audience there. It also depends on the size of your budget as well, how much you've got to actually try and test different channels as well. But the ideal that we find at the start of a campaign is we do go and try as many different channels where we think the audience will be as possible. And then going back to what Nathan said as well, you just gradually do your testing and go further into what really works, or a combination.
A lot of it can be, budget prohibitive. Accessing things like a data management platform where you can index your audience against those platforms, it can be quite expensive. Minimum entry points can be from license fees from £5,000 or £6,000 a month. So it will depend on marketing budgets. But there are ways that you can negotiate with data partners to understand that. I use the example of Reddit and the motor website, and essentially you can approach publishers like that with your data sets to say, how many people from our first party CRM data have you got on your platform, and try and match those people up, to produce. It's kind of, I suppose, circumnavigating the kind of cookie-based targeting that we get on traditional platforms, and being able to have kind of these direct deals and negotiations. But there are various tools around where you can index your audience against some of these platforms. For the major platforms, when you get into more niche ones, they don't necessarily have that data to be able to do it.
The only thing I'd add to that as well is also think about the strategic collaborations and opportunities and partnerships that you might be able to form. So sometimes you might look at some advertising opportunities and think they're cost prohibitive for whatever reason, but sometimes you need to think out the box. And actually, John made a good point about trying different platforms. Just because Spotify doesn't work for your competitor down the road doesn't mean it doesn't work for you. But actually, you don't have to go all in on that platform. You could absolutely form a strategic alliance or partnership with a similar business, or maybe a business that's going after a similar audience, and run joint campaigns. And that way you can try it a bit more cost effectively. And we've seen that to work quite well with some of our clients.
I might just add on those platforms as well that we've tried for a client, well, several clients, in fact, recently, including ourselves, TikTok, which you would not expect to be a B2B channel, but we've had incredible results from there as well. So don't write anything off until you've tried it.
Fantastic. So out of that triangle that Nathan showed us with the sort of the data, sort of traffic and conversion, what would you say what is the biggest mistake or the biggest boo-boo that you've seen happen in your spheres from clients deciding to do something which perhaps you felt was not a good idea?
I guess the biggest mess up from our side is people neglecting the other 2 points. So they come to us thinking they can solve the conversion point, but they haven't considered data or traffic. And actually, there's no magic bullet to conversion rate, right? There are quick wins, don't get me wrong, but you don't just suddenly go from 0 to 6% conversion rate overnight. It's a gradual process. And so thinking about running them all concurrently and getting better data, driving better traffic, and focusing on conversion, rather than thinking actually that you're going to spend a bit of money improving your conversion and the world will be solved of all its problems, is something we see time and time again, and quite frustrating when you have to remind the client that perhaps that's not how the world works.
Okay.
I think as well, there's the kind of, I call them the anecdotal marketers who say, well, I don't use that platform, so that's not where our audience is, or I never see any ads like that. And I think you've got to remove that assumption, and data is a good friend for doing that. Don't make any assumptions on where your audience might be. I'm a big advocate of dwell time on platforms. I'm not really interested where people think they should be. It should be where the eyeballs actually are, and the data can tell you that. Yes, there are big numbers on a lot of I call it the big five, so like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, wherever it may be. But the dwell time is actually not that great overall. When you've got the plethora of hundreds of other websites and platforms that a user might visit during a day. My profile will be very different to yours, Christine, to yours, John, and so on and so forth. So trying to tailor to it that individual is the core challenge.
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing, Christine, as well, is just sometimes people rushing into it and maybe not thinking about the audience, as we heard about earlier, but thinking about themselves. So everything's I, and therefore, I don't like this marketing, or I don't like this advert, or I don't like that platform, therefore we're not going to advertise on it. But actually, with respect, it doesn't matter what you like. It matters what the customer likes. And if the customer likes TikTok or Pinterest or whatever, it doesn't matter if you like it or don't like it. You have to put that to one side, because at the end of the day, we're not marketing for you. We're marketing for this customer segment over here.
It's very true. I mean, that goes back to data and listening to the data, because this is all science now. It very much is. And we had a client recently who the campaign was going incredibly well for, and we were pushing through people to an Eventbrite booking form. And the MD of the company decided that wasn't good enough. He wanted to actually be booking on his website. So after much discussion, we went through to his website, which, Nathan was talking about landing pages, conversion, and the rest of it earlier on, how crucial that is. And we watched the analytics drop and drop and drop of the conversions going through, because it wasn't going to the Eventbrite form. And it took a lot of quite interesting discussions to actually persuade them to look at the data and realize that actually we needed to go back to Eventbrite. It didn't matter why was Eventbrite converting more. It didn't really matter at that stage. It just showed that it did. So I think listen to the data. It's important.
John, that's a great shout. And actually one we've seen in the e-commerce space with PayPal is that everyone's like, oh, we don't want to use PayPal because we want to maintain margin and therefore we're going to use this gateway that no one's ever heard of that my mate built. And actually that's fine. You save in the short term, but conversions will bomb because people trust and know PayPal. And there's a kind of subliminal thing to, you know what, my money's going to be safe. I can get it back. I can pay on credit card, all that good stuff. Same with Eventbrite, really. It's a massive company. People are used to filling it in. Therefore, they're more confident doing that than a website that perhaps they haven't heard of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
We've
Well,
got a question here from Stephen. He says he's thoroughly enjoyed this webinar, so thank you. He says it's a little bit away from the topics. He says he's new to the world of marketing and would love some insight from you all on how you've all grown your careers and what might you suggest to someone in his position to grow themselves.
Oh, can we go back to trial and error?
Also, just to tell our sort of participants that we will be putting everyone's emails if they want to get in touch with either Nathan, Gary, John, or myself, or Abby. Then the emails will be there. But yeah, that's quite a sort of sidestep question. John, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very, very happy to answer, personally as well. If you want to get in touch with me, as Christine said, the email at the end there, because it would probably take me a very long time, and I'd need this glass to actually be full of what we promised it could have been full of, really, and a lot of discussion. But I would say just go for it. You can't, yes, you can make mistakes, but I think, all the great marketers and leaders will tell you learn from your mistakes. If you haven't made mistakes, you haven't been trying hard enough. So it is just trying everything, experimenting within reason, because a lot of what we do, especially across social channels, etc., has made things a lot more affordable. So you don't need massive budgets. You can experiment with little budgets and then gradually increase it. And read as much as you can. There's so much out there that people have already learned.
John, a perfect point there around pulling the trigger, and actually so many people procrastinate for so long and worry about what may be. I mean, you'll probably look back on the advertising you're doing today in a year's time and go, did we really put that video out, or did we actually do that? And yeah, you did, because in a year's time, it will be much better. And that will be because of the learnings you've taken. Oh, we didn't get much reach on this one. We didn't use the right hashtags here. We didn't do the right promotion here. So yeah, just pull the trigger and get it done. And also the other thing I'd add is surrounding yourself with the right people. There are thousands of people that have trodden the path that you're already on, maybe millions, depending on really what sector you're in. But please don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Great, you're attending something like this and trying to better your knowledge that way. But also think about where you want to get to and then who's already done that journey. And then just ask them, take them for coffee, take them for lunch. Appreciate it's hard with COVID, so maybe ask them for a 20-minute Zoom call. But you'll be amazed at how many people are willing to share their knowledge and insight and journey, because you also get that feel-good feeling of giving back, right? You've been so fortunate to get, certainly myself, been so fortunate to get this far, love being able to give back the other way. So do just reach out and ask people, and I'm sure they'll help.
Yeah.
There's another question, isn't
there? Yes. So who do you guys think is doing the most exciting and intelligent stuff in this space over the last year, brand-wise?
Question. I think personally, from my point of view, in terms of tech and kind of end-to-end capabilities from a brand point of view, I think the Hut Group are doing some really good stuff. Their end-to-end e-commerce and retail distribution platform is just insane. They have really crafted a market for themselves and their own brands. I don't know how many people on the call know much about the Hut Group, but they own MyProtein, is one of their biggest kind of forward-facing brands, and obviously one of the biggest supplement brands out there. But they actually started with developing e-commerce tech, and now they sell kind of an end-to-end technology solution into some of the biggest FMCG businesses and retail brands in the world. You only have to Google, they floated not long ago. Their founder has become very, very wealthy over the last kind of decade of hard work. And yeah, I think look at some of the stuff they're doing, their brands, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, for me, it'd probably be around Gymshark. I appreciate not quite in this sector, but their relentless strive to just constantly get better. And someone mentioned earlier about what they would do if they're growing their business. The other thing is building your personal brand. And I know that Gary and John and Christina, we've all looked at building our personal brands, but it's so important to essentially, a lot of people have fear, right? When they get behind the camera, they worry what people might think. They worry if people don't agree with them or whatever, but you just have to get out there and do it and be prepared to stand for what you believe in and hang your colors on the mast. And you look at Gymshark and they do that time and time and time again. They're relentless in their activity, relentless in their push for making things better, and they really prioritize culture. And that's the other thing as a business owner, is it's all well and good driving revenue and driving sales and profit and all that good stuff. But if your culture is poor, then you're just building something that's unsustainable. So think about how you can achieve those things while maintaining a healthy culture.
I couldn't agree with you more, Nathan. Yeah, it's great.
I'd echo Gymshark as well. That's what I was going to say. As far as, the really interesting, exciting, harnessing what's out there, harnessing fans and just the whole social, absolutely brilliant job. But I think in a tighter spot, I think HubSpot in particular and Sprout Social are two platforms that we use an awful lot, and they've really got the content right. And so that's where you hone in on your audience and think, what does my audience want to read? What's my audience looking for? And the number of times I've Googled, even for stats for a talk like this, and like to be HubSpot or Sprout Social or one of those who will come up. And I think that's incredible. I think, that is really, that's fulfilling a need. It's getting in front of exactly the right people. So yeah, there's two sides. There is the very exciting side like Gymshark, and then the maybe less exciting yet very useful side as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so just leaves me to say that we will be, we recorded this session, so we will edit it up and have it up on our YouTube channel, and you guys will be able to catch up or share it if you want to. But thank you so much, all three of you, for fantastic input, fantastic talks. I think so many takeaways there. I think it's been absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Really enjoyed it. See you soon.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye for now.
Bye.